Girdlings, did you know that the Shanghai Major was almost 8 months ago at this point? 8 months into 2025, and you've done nothing but jerk off in your room and drop 13 kills in a 12k Premier game. But that also means it's been almost 8 months since the post-Shanghai Rostermania. Everyone gives their ranks for this directly after it happens, which, you know, listen, it's valid. I did it. It's content, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? Because we haven't even seen how these players work on these teams yet. So I'm going to be going back and revisiting these moves and ranking them. Counter-Strike is fast-paced, man. It can be 3 months, and if you aren't playing up to par, you can be benched. I'm going to say around 8 months is enough time. After Katie and Team Liquid, which I'll spare you. We don't gotta talk about Katie and Team Liquid. Liquid ran with Twist IGL and New Upper Ultimate through most of 2024. And after kind of an up and down season, they would actually make the Shanghai playoffs. To play the future winners of the whole thing, Spirit in the quarters, where it was fairly close. They would lose in 2 maps. But like, Spirit had to kind of sweat. Now, you might think that that is a victory for the organization. And to be fair, it was. But there was one player on this roster that kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, and that was Yakinder with his 0.95 rating over the past 6 months against top 20 teams. So during this Rostermania, Liquid would make the splash signing of Nertz from Heroic. Immediately, this move seemed like a slam dunk. I mean, Nertz had just posted a 1.14 rating against top 20 teams throughout 2024. During that same time period, Yakinder dropped a 0.95 and was looking to be a huge firepower upgrade for the team that might be able to get them over the hump. And looking back, he was a firepower upgrade, but unfortunately for Nertz, Team Liquid's problems run so much deeper than just him. It is crazy how cursed this organization is. During the season, they would also add Suhei for JKS, and he would take over the captain role instead of Twist. But somehow, with all of these, like, should-be good moves on paper, Liquid was still complete ass in 2025. Liquid has made as many playoffs this season as they have bombing out of tournaments without winning a match. The number's 2, by the way. They bombed out of 2 tournaments. They made the playoffs of 2 tournaments. And one of the events they bombed out of was a PGL event without the best teams there. Most recently, they bombed out of Stage 3 of Austin 03, which is just a huge regression from Shanghai, and also just lost in the ESL Pro League Season 22 qualifier to Sashi, man. Now, I don't think this Nertz move is a bad move on paper. Honestly, I think it's quite far from it. He's literally been a better player than Yakinder was with this team, but like, Liquid is just cursed, man. I'm gonna give this move a B. I really don't think it was bad, but if the team can't win and they regressed in their major performance, I can't really rank it higher than that. Virtus Pro. This team was so incredibly mediocre throughout 2024. The James system did not translate well into CS2. There was a weird dynamic with the team after Electronic joined. It kind of just seemed like the energy shifted from them being like this Sigma male, quiet, not really talking team to a more shit talk, loud, energized team, which if you guys know James, that is not normal for a James-led team. So, you know, stuff was starting to get a little weird behind the scenes. They also bombed out of the Shanghai opening stage 1-3. So changes were absolutely needed for the roster, and they would come pretty quickly after this major. Norbert and Jane would be benched, and to replace them would be Icy from Cloud9 and Flamus from Gamer Legion, who honestly both had great showings at this major, but the new IGL would be Electronic. Dear God. Originally, I glazed this move like crazy, mostly because I just saw how insane these 2 new players can be. And as I learned from watching G2, you can kind of just make teams work if you have enough firepower. And in my mind, this team seemed to have a good amount of it. But what I failed to consider was the 2 new players would not be good, and Electronic would not only be a bad IGL, but simply forget how to shoot anyone. So with the only player on this team who killed anyone being Flit, it did not go very well. In 2025, VP have made a few playoffs, but never did anything in them, and recently just missed out on the Austin playoffs after going 2-3 in Stage 3. One of the players they picked up during this post-Shanghai Rostermania has already been benched. That was after signing a 4-year contract, by the way. And Icy is currently one of the worst offers in Tier 1. You know what, man? I've thought about it. I'm gonna give VP a D because I am mad about Flamus being benched and them probably ruining both of these players' careers. But I do think the new VP does have higher peaks than the old VP did. So because of that, I'm giving them D. No, nothing higher than D. That's as graceful as I'll be. Farmlings, I have some incredibly good news. Skin Club is once again allowing me to give all of their money away to you guys. And this time, it's going on for the entire month of August. So if you want a chance to win this Flip Knife Phase 2 Doppler or various other smaller skins after every single video, stay until after we hear a little bit more about today's sponsor, Skin Club. Skin Club is only available to those 18 years old or older. And remember, make sure to play safe and only deposit what you're willing to lose. Skin Club is one of the biggest case opening websites on the planet with a completely provably fair and honest system. Along with this, you can open free cases every single day. They even have a battle system where you can play other players along with an upgrade system. And to keep things fresh, they have new events every month that bring new cases and giveaways. You can get started today by using one of their various deposit methods such as card, PayPal, or even your old skins. And if you use code Garmour or hit the link in the description, you will get a 7% deposit bonus. Now to enter the Garmour X Skin Club raffle, all you have to do is deposit with code Garmour during the month of August. That's it. You'll be entered to win the Flip Knife Doppler, where the winner will be drawn at the end of August, along with being entered to win a smaller skin after every single video. The skin that's being given away in this video is a field-tested AWP Chrome Cannon. Winner will be announced in the next video. Thank you guys. Bye. Big Clan. Does it even make sense to really talk about them? I'll just go through this one quick. They're basically just a tier 2 team at this point. Throughout 2024, they were fighting for their lives in tier 2, not even having that much success. They especially did not do jack shit at the tier 1 level. I'd say probably the most disappointing part of this team was Regon. He was very good on Bad News Eagles, and I thought he'd be able to translate to this team. He could not, though. He had a .88 rating against top 20 teams. Along with this, Searson, the team's AWPer, at a .98. That's just not good enough as an AWPer. Then to replace these two players would be an AWPer who was formerly on their academy team, but most recently was on alternate attacks. Hyped. And they would also pick up Kyubi, who most recently had an atrocious stint on Fnatic. And these moves have not really done anything to help Big get out of tier 2 hell. Since Kyubi has joined, he also has a .88 against top 20 teams, so it literally was just a side grade. It's like there was almost no difference. And Hyped has a 1.01 against top 20 since joining. So slight improvement, but really nothing crazy. They couldn't even make the Austin Major. So they're still not doing anything in tier 1. They're trapped in tier 2. I don't even know if they're going to make the next major. I'm just going to give this move a C. I think it was literally just 2 side grades to stay in tier 2. Faze was in a strange spot in 2024. They made the finals of Copenhagen, where they lost. Then after winning Chengdu in April, they would only make 1 semifinals for the rest of the year, until of course Shanghai. At this point, they were major merchants, which, don't get me wrong, is honestly a flex. But you, of course, want to be able to do more during the regular season. So after Shanghai, Robson Faze decided it was time for a change. He wouldn't be re-signed and would walk in free agency. Then his replacement would be Elige from Complexity. Now, I'm just going to get this out of the way. I have to give this move a D. But there was clearly much more deep-rooted issues within the core of Faze than just one player could fix. So I was kind of hoping Faze did more of a rebuild during this period, but they just didn't. Since Elige has joined, the roles on this team have been whack. Rain has moved out of some of his best roles, like outside on Nuke, where he might have been the best outside Nuke player in the world. Guys, a classic Garmour misinformation. Listen, Rain still plays outside on Nuke most of the time. I think it was just temporary with Elige taking that spot, but the point still stands. The roles have been whack. And changing with Rain's roles has caused him to play worse. Brokey has been god-awful, and Elige himself has been fine since joining. He has a 1.05 against top 20 teams this year, but he does seem to throw his life away just too often, which does cost his team rounds. In 2024, Faze were mediocre. In 2025, I would just say Faze is bad. This one is going to be fairly straightforward. This is the team that Rops would go to after leaving Faze. You know, we just got to get the S tier out of the way. This was not only the best move from the entire Rostermania, but one of the best roster moves of all time. It seemed that with Spink's Vitality, we're just doomed to always be group stage merchants. Like, yes, they won that major at the end of CSGO, but throughout CS2, they hadn't really done much. They would consistently look like the best team in the world, but then when it came to playoffs, they just somehow always found a way to lose. Sure, they won IEM Cologne, but after that, it was kind of not much of anything. Like, they make the playoffs of the next 5 tournaments and wouldn't make the finals of a single one. And one of the biggest reasons for this was Spinks. He was just a playoff dropper. After he was replaced by Rops, this team went on a tear, winning 7 tournaments in a row, including the Austin Major. I mean, just look at these 2 images. Vitality in 2024 with Spinks, and Vitality in 2025 with Rops. And you know what? After looking at these images, I'm adding a tier above S. This move is S+. Nothing else even comes close to it. After being deemed the most overrated team of 2024 by a Garmour, Complexity would go on to make drastic changes to their roster. Floppy would be benched, and Elige would be sold off to Faze. Now, this was understandable, as besides JT, he was the team's worst performer. He posted a .93 rating in 2024 against top 20 teams, and honestly, Elige was kind of the complete opposite, but the move also made quite a bit of sense. He just seemed overqualified for a team like this. Besides a tier 2 tournament, Complexity had no success all year, and Elige's 1.13 rating against top 20 teams was enough to get him in the HLTV top 20 list, and no one else on Complexity even sniffed this list. I don't even know if anyone else on the team was top 40, so it just made sense it was time for him to move to an international project. Then to replace these 2 players, Complexity would choose from the NA talent pool, where they would pick up Sixy and Nick X. Now, while a lot of people were clowning the team for this, I'd say they got the respect of most NA fans because they did something every other team was scared of doing. They did try and pick from the NA talent pool, and I would say it's kind of worked out. Both of the players have shown glimpses at points, and the team as a whole has shown glimpses, especially at PGL Bucharest, but it doesn't seem like they've really fully put it together yet. What this move did more than anything was free up Grim and Halzerk. They've been absolutely cooking this year so far. Grim went from a .97 rating in 2024 to a 1.13 in 2025 against top 20, and Halzerk went from a 1.05 to a 1.10. So if we're talking about Grim and Halzerk, this move is a huge success. But if we're talking about the 2 actual players that joined the team, it's been meh. In 2025, Sixy has a 1.0 rating against top 20 teams, and Nick X a 0.89. I'm gonna give this move a B. Everyone thought Complexity would get significantly worse, and they absolutely did not. I would say they might have even improved a little bit. I also think with some more time in tier 1, Sixy and especially Nick X can improve. So I'd say this needs a little more time, but for right now, I'm giving it a B. The beloved child of everyone watching Shanghai. They are a tier 2 team though, so I'm gonna go through them a little bit quicker. After these bad boys upset Astralis in the RMR and barely missed out on making it through the opening stage, Chilla would step down from the roster to take a break from gaming entirely. The 2 biggest stars on the team at this point was Fear and Jambo. Fear was the team's IGL and Jambo was the AWPer. And unfortunately for Passion UA, one of them would get poached. Fear would be signed by Fnatic. Then to replace these 2 players, they would sign Topa as an IGL and Kavem. This Kavem signing, I love this so much, man. He had just impressed on the Onapixel Drillers roster and had a weird contract situation, which I am happy to see he got out of. So good for Kavem, man. I'm happy he got this opportunity. But if you look at Passion UA today, there's still 2 more moves they did. This team is not even close to what they were in Shanghai. Throughout the season, once again, Fnatic would come knocking on the door. They would poach the 2nd star this time, Jambo. So the team would replace him with another star from the Drillers team, Waro 2K. They would then eventually also replace Zerofix with Demka from Monty. This new team on paper is so incredibly fun. I love it so much. Along with this, the 2 Drilla stars have not wasted this opportunity. In 2025, they've been carrying Passion UA. It's just like how Onapixel dreamed it up, man. It brings a tear to my eye. But yeah, this team is incredibly exciting on paper. I'm gonna give it, I'm gonna give it an A tier. You guys have done some introspection. Probably the best thing would be for Passion UA to not have lost their last team, and I don't really think they've gotten that much better. I like the moves on paper still, so I'm gonna give it a B tier. Putting them in A looked weird though. It was like too high. Eternal Fire are one of the most exciting up-and-coming teams of 2024, but after making playoffs of Copenhagen and winning CCT Season 1 Global Finals, they really couldn't seem to get over the hump. They lost in the finals of a Bet Boom tournament and the finals of ESL Pro League Season 20, then they bombed out of the Shanghai RMR. After that travesty is when the team would bench Calyx and sign Joda from Sangal. The team wanted to stay Turkish, and Joda had been playing incredibly well on Sangal, posting a 1.12 in Tier 2, so the move was kind of obvious. And initially, this move looked like it was exactly what the team needed, as they would make the finals of Blast Bounty, where they would unfortunately lose to Spirit. But then afterwards, they would go on to make the playoffs of every single tournament they attended, where they would lose immediately, nearly every time. And when it really mattered at Austin, they bombed out of Stage 3 going 1-3. In 2025, Joda has posted a 1.01 against top 20 teams, which is better than what Calyx did in 2024. He posted a 0.96. Now, I know this team is Aurora now, but I'm still just going to say Eternal Fire because that's who they were when they signed Joda. I'm talking about the roster, not the organization. But anyways, it seemed like this move had improved their floor until Austin, really. And realistically, they probably did still improve it. But while they improved their floor, they still really can't get over the hump. They're just kind of like sitting in a divot in the middle. But it wasn't a bad move, so I'll give it a B. During this Rostermania, Payne would also bench Lux and replace him with David. Hold on, guys. Let me lock in. The people were scalping me for mispronouncing names in the last one.
Davideuts.
I mean, if that's what HLTV is saying, that's what I'm going to call him. This move was confusing at first, as Lux was probably the team's best player, posting a 1.17 in online games. The problem was he dropped a 1.03 on LAN. And for the roles he was playing, the team decided this just wasn't enough output. Darby Dudas had a 1.18 in 2024, but most of this was also online, so we'd have to wait and see if he actually did perform better than Lux on LAN. But it is kind of hard to talk about Payne without giving the whole story. All season, these guys had issues with basically no practice, a constant subs, and their coach standing in. Later in the season, Kawez would also be replaced by DGT from 9Z. And let me tell you what, these two roster moves on paper honestly looked elite, but we wouldn't really see this pay off until the Austin Major, where the team finally had practice, and you wouldn't believe it, they made the goddamn semifinals. The real star for the team was NQZ with his 1.14 rating, followed by DGT and Dirty Duties with a 1.03 and a 1.02 respectively. This one is kind of strange because I feel like in this situation, 6 months kind of isn't enough to determine if these moves were good or not. So I'm going to say we probably still need this season as well to see. Like, I understand they made the semifinals of Austin, but we got to see how consistent they are. But for the time being, I'm going to give these two moves an A. Heroic's entire ass team got poached, so they'd have to rebuild from the ground up, and they would do this by signing the core of Sangal and then supplement them with Tanir and Sunpius. They'd go on to be a solid team this season, making Blast Bounty playoffs, then cruising through the Austin MRQ, winning CCT Season 2 Global Finals, winning Mesa Nomadic Masters, barely missing out on IEM Dallas playoffs, then cruising through Stage 1 of the Major 3-0, and sadly falling out of Stage 2 2-3. This entire year, it seemed like Heroic was a dark horse team. You really didn't want to play them. And this was after rebuilding literally the entire team from the ground up. Tanir also broke out with the team, posting a 1.14 against top 20 teams. Sunpius also played well enough to get poached by G2. And LNZ and Youngster are Swedish. They did both play pretty well. I'm gonna glaze the fuck out of these moves for Heroic just because of the situation. This is an S. It might be too far. I don't care. When you take into consideration they got a bag of money, then created a new team for fairly cheap, I'm assuming, helped Tanir break out, and were good all season, I just got to. Gamer Legion was another team whose Rostermania moves I loved. They sold Flamus to VP, which to be honest was sad. I feel like most people knew Flamus' career was ruined at this point. Well, I guess besides me. And then they would also go on to bench Volt. And their replacements would be a Fetus, PR from Mouse NXT, and Rez, who they finally saved from NIP jail. Thank you, guys. These two moves were absolute slam dunks, as the two riflers would be the best players on Gamer Legion this past season. This new roster would have a problem with consistency, but with the addition of PR and Rez, they were only one game away from playoffs at IEM Cato, one game away from the playoffs at ESL Pro League, made playoffs at Bucharest, ignore the Austin MRQ, made the playoffs of Melbourne, ignore Astana, made the playoffs of IEM Dallas, and made the playoffs of Fisher Playground. They're now one of the better teams in the world, being ranked 13, and I'm also assuming these two moves were done for fairly cheap. Now, with all this in mind, I'm gonna glaze this team as well. They gotta be an S tier. I mean, your two new additions are your two best players now. It was great. After the last NIP project completely failed, the entire core would be dumped besides Wrinkle. Then they would be completely rebuilt during this Rostermania. The new players would be Snappy, Shush, Eras Dose, and U-Jerks. Now, unfortunately, with the new VRS system, we didn't really get to see them do that much this past season until PGL Astana. Here they would actually look very good and even make playoffs, where they would unfortunately lose to Spirit, but it's Spirit, and they kind of made them sweat. After this tournament, we then learned that Wrinkle and Shush are the greatest players on this earth. Snappy can still call, and the old star duo of Saw was Portuguese. I'm serious this time. That's about where it ends. They did not have it in them anymore. But overall, looking at how bad NIP has been for years at this point, this new team is a huge success. I mean, they're exciting for the first time in a long time, and due to this, I gotta give them an A. In this next season, we should see more of them as well. The boys made it all the way up to number 24 power in the world, so they should be invited to some higher tier tournaments. And they even just made a roster move recently, this Rostermania, which hopefully should make them even better. Listen, man, this team is fun, okay? I'm excited to see what they can do moving forward. Ah, bet boom. Goodbye, Nafany. Thank God. And while we're at it, let's get rid of Chiron as well. Nafany had just been a terrorist on this team for too long. He had awful calling. The team had no cohesion with him leading, I feel like. He also had a 0.8 rating against top 20 teams in 2024. A 0.8 rating, man. Along with this, Chiron was just kind of mediocre. He had a 0.98 rating against top 20 teams. So it was just time for them to go. And thanks to the Cloud9 collapse, BetBoom would have some new Russian players they could easily pick up. Axile and Boomich would be brought in, and the team immediately looked better. Boomich fragging and calling wise was a huge upgrade over Nafany, and Exile on paper just seemed to be better than Chiron. Now, they haven't played a ton of tier 1 in 2025, but when they have, they've been fairly solid, at least better than they were. They made the playoffs of Blast Bounty, went through stage 1 of the Austin Major 3-1, and just made semifinals of Fissure. I'd probably say most of their success can be credited to Boomich. The calling and team cohesion seems much better than what it was last year, and Exile, he started fine on this team, but it just gotten worse throughout the year, and currently has a 0.99 against top 20 teams. Not really any better than Chiron, but the team did get better, so I'll give this move a B. Kind of similar to Pain, Flyquest made one move during the actual Rostermania and a second one a couple months later. The first would be replacing probably the worst AWPer in all of tier 1, Alistair, with Regali. And the second would be benching IGL Dexter and replacing him with Netic, then making Ins the new IGL. The eye test would tell you Regali has been a demon on this team. And I mean, I would agree. Like, sometimes he puts on his backpack and just carries the entire team to wins. But if you look at the rating, he does only have a 0.99 against top 20 teams this year. But it's absolutely still an improvement over Alistair. Ins, IGL, and Netic does seem to give the team more firepower. In 2025, Netic has a 1.17 rating, but it does fall to a 0.97 against top 20 teams, which is kind of an issue Flyquest has had forever, so it's not super surprising to see these players drop off. So while I do love them, and these moves absolutely had to be done, I want to put this in between like C and B tier, but I do think they got slightly better, and Alistair needed to go, so I'll give it a B. Mouz are chatted the fuck up for what they did. Technically, they didn't make any moves during the Rostermania, but I'm still going to count what they did. After being one of the best teams in the world, a loss to BetBoom in an online match completely broke this roster, as right afterwards, they would bench their young IGL, Suhei. Now, to give you some context, this man basically joined the team, immediately made everyone else around him better, and then turned them into a consensus top 5 team for all of 2024. How could they bench him? Well, apparently, there was different visions for the team, which is basic PR slop response, to be honest. It is probably true, but it's so vague. It definitely is not the full story, and I'm sure eventually we will get this story, but we're gonna have to wait probably a few more years. Anyways, Brolin would take on the IGL duties, and then they would sign Spinks from Vitality. They were immediately clowned on by the entire scene. To then somehow get better, you might be saying, how did they get better? They were a consensus top 5 team. They were already great. After this move, they are now a consensus top 3 team. Throughout 2025, they've won Cluj-Napoca, been to 3 finals and 3 semifinals. That's it. That's the results of every tournament they've played with their full roster. Their worst result this year so far has been a semifinals exit. That's pretty damn good. It turns out Brolin is actually a very solid IGL, and Spinks just unlocked the entire roster. I mean, this is just an easy S tier. After being the best team in the world for a while, and having the most exciting duo in all of Counter-Strike, G2 would allow Nico to leave and go to Falcons, which would in turn also cause their star AWPer Monacy to leave and join Falcons. One of the worst fumbles from an org that I can remember. Now, to replace Nico would be Heavy God. He would kind of replace Malb's roles, and Malb's would replace Nico's roles. Like, Heavy God was a solid replacement for sure, but guys, it's Nico. You can't really fill the hole this guy left. I know a guy that can fill Nico's holes. Anyway, since Nico has left, G2 have gone from winning S-tier tournaments to sometimes making the playoffs. From a top 3 team to a top 15 team. When they still had Monacy, they didn't do much. When he left and Hades was a stand-in, they also didn't do much. And like, Heavy God and Malbs have been good. Don't get me wrong, but it's just not enough. I do like G2's new roster. It's not going to be anything close to what the old G2 was, but it is exciting. But for the Rostermania Nico move, which in turn dominoed Monacy to leave, I gotta give it an F tier. These boys really said, if we wanted to keep Nico, we would have. I just don't think that's true. I think you're brainless. Falcons, being the complete and utter disaster that they were throughout 2024, would completely rebuild their team with the former core of Heroic, Kixen, Tesses, and Dexter, sign Nico from G2, and then have Magisk left over. Now, with how utterly horrible this team was in 2024 and how much they improved in 2025, because listen, I know the only Rostermania moves were those 4 that I listed, but them signing Nico also allowed them to get Monacy later down the line. So the Nico signing was basically a 2-in-1. I know it sucks for Dexter getting benched, but Nico by himself would have made this S-tier roster moves. Plus, you get Kixen, one of the best young IGLs in the world. Tesses has been playing out of his mind on this team. They've been nipping at Vitality skills literally all season. You know, I get it, okay? They have $1 billion, but with the billions dollars, they finally actually made good moves. So, I mean, listen, Falcons plus Nico, which helped them get Monacy, plus the Heroic Core, it's gotta be ass. I forgot about you guys, so I just put you at the end. You replaced Phelps with Shea Jesus, who has already been benched. Congratulations, you good enough. Alright, I think that's everything that was relevant. Sure, like, Isaac joined Metasport. I don't care. James joined Paravision, which was cool, but they haven't done anything. We did have Rek get temporarily benched because he was injured and have Keto play for the team. That's not really a roster move, so that was everything. So here's the final list for all of the teams that made roster moves during the post-Shanghai Rostermania. I think it's fairly good. Now, this is going to be posted during IEM Cologne, so some of these might already age poorly, but nothing will be as poor as Liquid's performance. Oh my god, are they ass.